Okay, so our patient had to take a little cough, so we interrupted the first video briefly. She had something in her throat bothering her, so we took a little sip of water, and now we're back. So, as I was saying, we're up to tip number 2, which is the third tip of the anterior kit. And if you notice, the dot is above the 2. What this means is that this is a delta 1 instrument, and it will only work progressively from the tip and into the deep bone. It will not do anything on the crestal portion. Okay? So, let's continue. Now, what I always like to tell all my students and all of our fellow colleagues watching is you don't have to use the system for every case. You might sometimes use the system in conjunction with your drills. It all depends on your bone density. So it's perfectly okay to think outside of the box and hybridize things at times. Okay? So right now we're approaching the 10 millimeter mark. I feel the activity of the tip beginning to work in the deep area. And I'll have our patient gently turn to the left a bit. Mrs. P, thank you so much. So there is the 10 millimeter mark, folks. We give a little chance to the bone to dilate. We proceed. I'm actually very excited to see how the bone will respond in the posterior side because the bone there felt very dense. So either I will do it just straight with the drill conventionally, or we'll try to densify a bit. I always like to preserve my bone. So I remove bone only when it's completely necessary. Otherwise, I will, in most cases, try to improve the bone density and the bone quality by using my new instrument kit by Helmut Zepf once again. Okay, so we're slightly past the 13 millimeter mark. I will back it out. The second instrument initially did not want to go to full working depth, so I had to use the initial tip just to recalibrate. This one went in perfect. We're going to rotate it out, and then we're going to use the last instrument for this case. Now, we are planning to put a 3/7 by 13 millimeter fixture in this case. Maybe let's show one shot of the osteotomy here, how it's progressing. So there it is, folks. The osteotomy is being opened nicely. And now we're going to use instrument number 3. As you can see now, instrument number 3 is the 4th instrument of the set because we start tip 0, tip 1, tip 2, tip 3. So tip 3 in my hand is the 4th instrument, and the dot is below the number 3. So this is a delta 2 instrument. So this instrument in relationship to the previous instrument will only dilate the crestal portion. Okay? So we rotate. Now one other point I'd like to make, it's always preferable to make an osteotomy smaller than your target size, and you could always back out the implant and increase the osteotomy diameter as opposed to getting a spinning implant, in which case there's still tricks to do. You can make it not spin by adding a little bone in the osteotomy, or by purely going to a fatter implant. Now let's focus here on the task at hand. Now I'm waiting for the bone to expand slightly while I talk. And one very important thing that I'd like to mention, which I keep repeating in most videos, and I will keep repeating, is this. Delta 1 instruments in relationship to Delta 2 instruments have 1/2 the taper. So Delta 2 instruments have twice the taper compared to Delta 1 instruments. And also, I repeat, Delta 2 instruments will dilate the crestal portion of bone. So Delta 2 instruments will give you more resistance and should be treated with a little more caution because they have double the taper. So as you see with this instrument, I'm progressing slower. Okay? The other rule generally we should all follow is that the denser the bone is, the faster you should expand. The softer the bone is, the faster you can expand. Okay, so we're approaching 10. The density feels now terrific compared to what it felt in the beginning. I'm going to give it a minute to expand. Now, if you guys see these little bubbles on the side here, it's very exciting. Right here, if you see these little bubbles, the bone is being expanded as we speak. Okay? So let's go to full depth now. So we passed 10. You see those bubbles, Karina?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that, what's going on. It's very exciting. I'll give it again a chance to expand a bit. Generally speaking, folks, this system, it seems that the fourth instrument, which is tip 3, seems to be substantial size-wise for a 3/7 diameter implant. So this is a universal kit that's designed to be used with any implant system. So when you guys start using these instruments, it's important to take into consideration the size of the system, rather the size of the implants you're using and the system you're using. So this way you can learn the system properly and how it is applicable to your particular implant system that you're using. So we have reached 13 millimeter mark. I will wait slightly. And again, as you guys can see in the video, this is the 2/4 taper. Okay? So let's remove and let's attempt to place our first implant. Now I'm doing again pure rotation. I'm being very cautious with the patient's lip here. We always want to respect the anatomy, and we always need to respect what we're doing in relationship to everything else that we have in the mouth. Now, I will open my own implant because Karina is videotaping, so we won't pause the video. Now, what I always like to do is I always like to make sure there is no soft tissue on top of the osteotomy. I see a little tag right here, which I will remove. It's probably bone, but I want to be sure there is absolutely no soft tissue in this area. So we'll do a little curettage. I see maybe a little tag of periosteum here. Let's get that out. Very good. Alright, I'm going to open my own implant and I will rejoin you in 30 seconds. Okay, so here is the first fixture. It's a 3/7 by 13. I generally like to place my implants by hand. Some of you guys out there and gals prefer to, wow, beautiful engagement. Beautiful engagement. Now with the 3/7 implants, folks, we need to be cautious because the necks can fracture if you put too much torque on them. Now this is going very nicely. Very nice fixation. Again, if the bone was giving me more resistance, I will go a little slower, but it's not. It's going nice and smooth. Now I will take my transfer out momentarily so that I can put the implant to the proper depth. And then, folks, what I'm going to do is put the transfer back on so that we can use it for angulation reasons while I do the posterior implant. The other thing I'd like to mention to everyone is when you guys retract, it's important to rest the retractor on bone so we don't overcompress the soft tissue. And in this case, I just wanted to mention another thing earlier that I forgot. I'm going to be burying both implants because the patient wears a removable partial denture, and I want to give her the comfort of being able to use her prosthesis while the implants integrate. So I'm going to drive it down. We have excellent fixation. I want no rough surface anywhere. And again, I'm lining up the flat of the instrument driver to the buckle. I say this in almost every video because it is important if you guys plan on using an angulated stock abutment. So this is very, very good in my opinion. So I'm going to put the fixture mount back. I won't tighten it much, just so it serves for guidance, okay? And then I'm going to proceed with the posterior one. That's good enough, not too much. There we go. So, first implant is in. Now we are going to place our second one. And I'm just going to remeasure, so we'll have one premolar size tooth here. I'm just verifying because my second pilot hole is right there. Okay, so let's calculate from here to about here. This looks spectacular. So we're going back to a little bit this way. We're going back to tip 0. And as I said earlier, the bone in the posterior site, which is site number 5, seemed much denser when I did the pilot. So we'll see. We might finish off this osteotomy with the drills, or we might finish it off with the osteotomes. Now back here I intend to place a wide implant of 4/7, going in nicely. I'll give the instrument a moment to expand the bone, and then we'll proceed. Again, tip 0 is being used right now. I'm being cautious with the lip as much as I can. Here we go. Let's see if I can hold the lip and work, because my lovely assistant is videotaping. So by the end of the day, I'm going to become an implantologist without an assistant, because Karina's going to become a movie producer soon. Okay, so we went to 13, maybe even a little bit more. There we go. Let's back it out. I'm watching the lower lip, folks. Pure rotation in the exit. Okay. Now we go to the next tip, which is tip number 1. Perfect, Mrs. P. If you can just stay like that, is great. You're missing the target site, please. So tip number 1 is a Delta 2 instrument. So that's dilating the crestal portion. It's okay, I'm watching the lip, don't worry. Now, as I said before, if the instrument gets stuck and does not want to proceed, you back it out. And you can either use our posterior kit and give a little gentle malleting action, but it seems to be progressing very nicely here. So we're almost down to 13. And now we're slightly past 13, which is exactly what I want. in case my bone is not even in buccal and lingual aspects. So